Hello, beautiful souls. With Tormador here from Soul Healing Tribe, and today I want to talk about. They are very specific stories, memories that we have of our life. Why are those stories and memories so significant? Sometimes we say them in such a way that we don't even pay attention to what we're saying and how we're saying it and what we're feeling inside of us. So, what I want to ask you to contemplate on today is what before we even do anything else, I want you to really pause the video and go in for a couple of minutes and think of the top stories, memories that you have through childhood, teenage years, early adulthood that you repeat over and over in family gatherings, Christmas, Thanksgiving, maybe things that you say to potential people that you're dating, maybe things that you said to your kids. And I want you to consider, so take a minute, pause the video and come back. And when you're ready, I want you to really consider those stories that you have shared, those memories that come up often. Maybe you don't share them with anyone, they just come up. I want you to consider how were those moments crucial moments indeed. How were defining moments? You know, a defining moment in a movie when the hero, the main actor is, pushing through and he gets to this aha and makes sense out of things. That's a defining moment. In this case, it might look very simple, that defining moment. And the reason is why, because for some reason, maybe that moment helped us to make sense out of this existence, to survive. You know, that defining moment in childhood when perhaps you were being bullied, or perhaps you were the bully because that was the only way that you felt like you were seen. Or perhaps your siblings say things to you that have marked you in such a way that you continue to repeat that. And maybe when you're angry between family meetings, you might even say it. If there is some disagreement, you might even bring it up again because it was a defining moment. Defining moments are those moments that sometimes we don't even think about that they're defining because it's like their impact is really hidden and we just keep the part that makes us survive. Another way to see defining moment is moments when we decided something significant. For example, you could be in a situation where because you were being bullied in school or by family members, siblings, or whoever, that you decided that the only way to be part of a group was to do the same. So you become a bully too. Or you might not become a bully, but you might become a manipulator. And that's another form of bullying, right? So when we manipulate, we want someone to do something. And sometimes we think we have the best, we have the only way is this way because otherwise they're not going to do it. So I'm actually looking out for them. But in reality, you're manipulating because there is something there for you. So I know some of these things are harsh to contemplate on, but this is really part of the healing journey. So when you contemplate on a significant defining moment in life, in childhood, teenage years, I remember when I first came to the US, in the first year, there was a group of girls in the school, and they did not like me because for some reason they felt intimidated by, even though I didn't speak English, they thought that I was going to take some of the boys away from them. It was a group of girls that they were very obviously they had a lot of issues. But when they took me to a bathroom, I was in the bathroom, and they took me there. I mean, they trapped me there with another girl that was translating for me, and she basically told them, you cannot wear these clothes, you cannot do your hair this way, you cannot look at these people. And I was really confused because I didn't even know the people that they were referring to. And the reason why that was a very significant moment for me is because in that moment when they did that and they took me basically with a gun in that school, it was not a very good school district, to say the least, in Boston in that back in those days. And it was a defining moment because I made a lot of conclusions, and I was truly doing a lot of, there was a part of me doing things based on those conclusions that I created in that moment, what I made that experience mean to me. And those same girls, the same girls later, they were just really harassing me until I had someone that saved me, basically, some kid from the neighborhood. Anyways, in that moment, it was a defining moment for me because I made certain conclusions about the experience and about those girls and about me and the whole situation, and also about the fact that I couldn't even defend myself because these girls spoke English and I only spoke Spanish back then. And they were, I mean, I was skinny. I had, I mean, let's go back to that time frame. I was skinny. I was new to the country. I didn't know the language. The whole situation was just messed up. So they were pretty big girls. And I felt like if I go against them, I'm gonna be really in a bad place because there were too many of them and it was only me. So I made certain conclusions in that moment that I was weak and that I couldn't communicate. And that really marked a lot of a lot of a lot of habits that I created to be in alignment with that faulty belief that I was weak and that I couldn't communicate because I couldn't speak English. So you can imagine why some of these defining moments are so crucial, because we continue to operate from that reality, even when it's hidden. Another thing is somebody might tell you, or a sibling might tell you something. You're ugly, you're good for nothing, you're not part of this family, you don't belong here. Those are very significant moments. We might say them in family gatherings as a joke or as a little remark when something is said that we don't agree with, and remember when you did this to me, but it's not something that we are truly acknowledging as significant, is what I'm trying to say. So I want you to contemplate on those significant moments in elementary, before elementary, middle school, high school, college, first relationships, and so on. What are some of those defining moments for you? And contemplate on how those, to do this work properly, you really have to go in. So I always recommend closing your eyes so that your brainwave starts changing. And when you find those defining moments, what are some of the stories? I want you to put it in the comments because I want other people to understand and get an idea of what other people experience in this tribe when we have those defining moments. And then I want you to also contemplate, not only in that moment we create those faulty beliefs, but also through physics. We know this when, there is a really good book about Michio Kaku. I don't know if it's in English. I think there is also a copy in Spanish, but he did a book about parallel universes, parallel realities. And even though he didn't say it specifically this way, I found this book not too long ago, and I was fascinated by it because it reminds me of my conviction of the fact that they are parallel realities. I have seen them, I have experienced them, and I see the correlation in how we create those moments. So let me tell you what I came to conclusion years ago when I was really diving deep into parallel realities, and I realized back then, in those significant defining moments, when we have decisions to make, or when we are going through specific situations that are defining, we also create parallel realities. So those dimensions are not, I want you to understand a little bit about this, because I know sometimes it doesn't make sense, but imagine that you're here, and in that part that we're here, we are in this 3D, but in this 3D, we also have different dimensions that are horizontal and different densities that are vertical. Those parallel realities are knowing another universe. They are right here, but in a different dimension within this plane of existence. So parallel 1, parallel 2, parallel whatever. You can give the numbers or name. And you start going back to those defining moments, and you start pulling together your dreams. You're going to see a correlation of, wow, I cannot believe that even in my dreams, I'm getting the cheat sheets about those realities and how they're affecting me, and how, and all the ins and outs. So in those defining moments, when you are a child, when you are a teenager, when you are in your first relationships, when you take that first job or that second job or the job that traumatized you. I mean, I have created parallel realities based on a corporate position that I have many years ago, before I started my entrepreneur ventures. And I still have dreams sometimes about those realities. And they're not in that place, but they're in other planes of existence. And sometimes it's easy to work through them, but sometimes it's really hard, because it's like a lot of things are not making sense. There is a lot of confusion up there, a lot of fears and so on. Who knows what else? This is not about me right now. I want you to go back to you. When you have these defining moments, these are key defining moments. When you decided to have that child, or to abort, or when at a soul level, you know that you wanted to be with someone, but there was something that maybe this is not the right person, so you move on for whatever reason. Or you let someone go, but you know that you wanted to stay with them. Or you went to a specific school instead of another school. They're key defining moments. The ones that you keep bringing up that are positives, they have a lot of strength and qualities there for you. And the ones that are not so positive are the ones that have a lot of the things that you need to work through. And you can go through that yourself by simply closing your eyes and tapping into that defining moment, that story that you say all the time. My family didn't have enough to eat. So sometimes, this is a true story. We used to, let's say, for example, in our community, we used to, it was a very poor community, and I had a couple of friends that were sisters, and they will sometimes have to eat white rice with eggs, just eggs, fried eggs, 1 egg per child. And I remember that even though we were really poor, we still had a little more than that. And I remember every time when I hang out with them, that was a big problem for them, because they will get upset, because they will tell their parents, how many times this week do we have to have white rice with eggs? And that's all they had for lunch. That was a very defining moment for those people. For me, for example, I saw my cousin. And my cousin, when I went back, when my grandmother died, I went back, she had a child. And she brought the child, and she was giving the child something to drink, something to eat, because it was like 6 months old. And it was water with sugar. And that broke my heart, because I was like, wow, I remember when we were growing up, we didn't have water with sugar. It was water with chocolate. So it was water, chocolate, and sugar. So at least there was chocolate. It wasn't just water and sugar, but can you imagine all the worms inside of you when you were eating? I mean, and we used to have something that will give us medicine to when our belly was really huge, because they will know, okay, this person has worms inside, so we have to take them out. And I remember one time, this is really gross, but I remember one time being in the bathroom and something alive coming out, and I was like, holy crap. And we used to drink a lot of coffee and a lot of chocolate with sugar. In this case, she was lazy and she just put the water and sugar, and she's like, that's what my parents used to give me. And I was like, wow. Imagine the lack of so much that we experience in life based on things that we did or that were done for us in childhood, based on something like that. And what I'm saying is, a defining moment is when we accept that that's the way, because it was the way that it was done. Because she had the funds, the money to do more than that. She was just, this is what it was done, and we were okay. We're okay. And to me, it's like, no, that is not okay, right? I mean, because that's what I used to do, experience in childhood when I was growing up, doesn't mean that I have to repeat the same thing for my kids. So for her, that was a defining moment when she accepted that that was okay, because that was the way that the parents and the grandparents did, because they didn't have the money to do better. But in her mind, it was okay because parents did it this way. So I'm going to accept it and create that as my reality too for my child. So it could be something like that, something that you do because it was done without questioning, and you just keep doing it without really going in and contemplating and really reflecting, is this the best that I can do? Is this really what it is? Is this really my truth? It wasn't for me, but for her it was. Another thing is, for example, when you told, or you were told, maybe you told your brother, sister, cousins, you're ugly, or you're so beautiful but you're not very smart, or you know, you don't have good hair, whatever. Those are defining moments when we accept them as true, when the experience becomes our truth. So the moment that you decide to separate from someone or let someone go because you needed to move on, but eventually, when you really start contemplating, if there was another truth that you told yourself, another conclusion that you told yourself, for example, a client separates from the husband and has 2 kids, and she says, I had to survive, I had to move on, he was becoming very aggressive. But another shadow aspect that she created, a very defining key moment in that moment of letting go of him, another defining moment of that experience was, I'm going to move on and I'm going to do this for myself because this guy is becoming crazy. And even though I'm also doing this for my kids, there was a part of her that said, I'm a monster because I'm taking my kids away from their father. So even though behind we have to seek and dive deep, because initially this is the only way. I have to get away from him, otherwise it's going to hurt me and the kids. But in reality, the deepest pain that she was carrying is, for many years, is, I'm a monster because I'm taking my kids away from the father. So you see how that defining moment may have one piece that looks, this is the way to survive. But when you start going deep, there are layers there. If I do this, I'm going to do it because this is the way to survive. But in the meantime, I'm also creating a shadow aspect that says, I'm a monster. So we have to work through those feelings of letting go of those faulty conclusions that she made, those faulty beliefs. So when you identify the defining moment, see what is the initial conclusion that you make, but go a step further, deeper, and ask yourself, in that moment, or from that moment on, what did I decide to do based on that experience, that defining moment? So that you can start diving deep into what is it that I created in that moment? Was it really a positive experience, or did I create a shadow aspect in order for me to make it through, but at the same time is holding me back? Because defining moments sometimes hold us back. And the reason why we create the parallel realities is because a part of us in that moment that is making that is a choice. There's normally choices and you make a decision. That decision, maybe your heart says do one thing, but your mind says do something else, and you start separating and you start sending energy in a specific direction that allows for this reality to really produce itself. And if you really want to know more about parallel realities from a quantum physics point of view, you can definitely check out, I think it's Michio or Michi Kaku. So you can look that up. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I know it was a long conversation, but I wanted to really take the time so that you can understand what I'm saying when I'm talking about, forget about the parallel realities. Focus on this life for a moment. This is just so that you understand the real energetic influences that we have on our reality and the realities we create based on what's happening with us and so on. And when we send energy to that parallel reality, that means that we have less energy here. So, but if you don't need to get into all of that, just know that when you start really working on this life, you're going to pick up so much energy that then everything else starts making sense. So focus on this one first for now, and really concentrate on what are my key defining moments. What are some of the stories that I say all the time? Funny stories, bad stories, or stories that come up when I'm arguing. Maybe when you're arguing, this happens a lot with couples. You're arguing, and the same thing that they did 10 years ago or 2 years ago come back again to that conversation. And the man is thinking, but that was 2 years ago. What does that have to do with this moment now? And you're thinking, but this is exactly what I feel right now because you did that, and this is what I feel. The man doesn't understand, but the woman is thinking, I'm still back there. I still haven't overcome that moment. That's why it keeps coming up. So the moments that you keep bringing up in stories, in arguments, memories randomly, that means you haven't overcome those moments. And if it is positive and you bring it up when you need energy, it's because there was a strength within you that allowed you to push through. But look behind that and see where your energy was divided, because every time that we are creating those parallel realities, naturally, it happens naturally due to some of the traumas and decisions that we make. That means that we have less energy for us here. So the more I work on myself, the more I'm going to be able to bring some of that energy back to me so that some of those realities do not have to exist the way that they exist. So I'm going to leave it here for now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for being here. Thank